So, of course, the big story that everybody is troping with and dealing with that's not really being addressed much, unfortunately, is the devastating Hurricane Helene, that took Florida by storm. They're still dealing with the aftermath across Florida, across the Carolinas, and many of the other states that have been devastated with the impact. The death toll is now at 100 as we're saying this, and maybe more as they're continuing to search for victims. And just to show you how devastating this is, this is from Global News here. Hurricane Helene deaths top 100 in 6 states, supplies airlifted to flooded areas. Now, I don't know exactly like how they counted people. I would assume that when they do the tracking people, they go through like individual homes. And one of the things that I thought of pointing out is, what about people in homeless communities in the Florida region or the Carolinas or anything like that? They don't really have a residential space. So if something happened to them, are they going to be okay? What about, prisoners? Because they're locked in a facility, not a residential area. So again, there's a lot to consider of this. So here it is saying a crisis unfolded in Western Carolina as officials rushed to get more food, water, food, and other supplies to flood-stricken areas without power and cellular service Monday, 3 days after Hurricane Helene ripped across the U.S. Southeast. The death toll from the storm reached the triple digits. Desperate residents isolated by washed-out roads and the lack of power and cellular service in western North Carolina lined up for fresh water Monday, days after Hurricane Helene ripped through the southeastern United States and killed more than 100 people. Government officials and aid groups were working to bring basic supplies by airlift and trucks to the hard-hit tourism hub of Asheville and surrounding mountain towns. At least 107 people across 6 states were killed as the death toll climbed Monday, and a clearer picture emerged of the devastation stretching from Florida's Gulf Coast to the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. The North Carolina county that includes Asheville reported at least 35 people killed. Georgia's death count was raised Monday from 17 to 25. Northern Carolina's Governor Roy Cooper predicted the toll would rise as rescuers and other emergency workers reached areas isolated by collapsed roads, failing infrastructure, and widespread flooding. Asheville's water system was severely damaged, forcing residents to carry buckets to a creek to get water to flush toilets. They carefully watched their steps where a wall of water had ripped through a lot of the tree area and ground, leaving only mud. Neighbors shared food and water and comfort each other. That's the blessing so far in this. Somerville Johnson said outside her house, which has been without power since Friday. She's planned on treating the neighborhood to venison stew from her powerless freezer before it goes bad. Just bring your bowl and soup. Bring your bowl and spoon, she said. Others waited in line for more than a block at Mountain Valley Water, a water cellar, to fill up milk jugs and whatever containers they could find. Derek Farmer, who brought 3-gallon-sized apple juice containers, said he was been prepared for the storm, but now was nervous after 3 days without water. I just don't know how bad it's going to be, Farmer said. So, this is, of course, it's devastating. This is devastating, and like I said, a lot of this feels underreported in a lot of the mainstream media. They still want to focus more on the election. They want to focus on the cats eating dogs, or if Kamala Harris did work at McDonald's or whatever. That is just the distraction from the horrificness of what is happening now. And it's so horrific now that people at I believe it's the National Weather Service, it's either National Weather Service or the National Oceanic Alliance or Association, because of how powerful these storms are getting and how more frequent it is, they are now trying to calculate a far more higher stance than a Category 5. Because this is the damage that Category 4 is coming with Hurricane Helene. There's another one on the way as we're reporting this. There's, I think it's Hurricane Ivan, that's going around by the Caribbean area. So they're a lot more frequent, a lot more devastation. And it's moments like these where we finally figure out where the government really shines on helping people. Because as you're seeing this, let me just show you the response that Joe Biden gave in response to this, and comparative to the amount of money that was given to Ukraine recently because of their devastating war that's going on. And just shows you the dismemberment and disconnect of the government among its own people. And just like they did with Maui, just like they did with East Palestine, Ohio, with the train derailments that they purposely did because the infrastructure is so outdated and so lagging that the government completely ignored it and allowed more train crashes to happen because of all this. Here's their response to now another devastation that they're going to leave their people hanging up to dry while we're still flourishing this money laundering and the military-industrial complex of Ukraine. Listen to this.
I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance. I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance. We've given them all everything that we have. We're on the ground ahead of time, so we're working hard.
Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving them?
No, we've given them, we have pre-planned a significant amount of it, even though they didn't ask for it yet.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is Joe Biden. That is your president. That is the government for you. The money where your tax dollars are going. Telling you that in times of devastation, where you need your money the most, we give in all we can. I mean, we did stuff, but you're stuck. You know, you're on your own. But we'll make sure that all your tax dollars are safely put away to the war regime in Ukraine. We'll safely put in the most corrupted nation in East Europe, but not to restore a hurricane-affected area that's devastated town and town across 6 states. We won't worry about that, but we'll make sure that money goes overseas to the most corrupted nation in Eastern Europe. That's your government for you. And sadly, and this doesn't make me any joyful or happy to say this, but I'm not surprised. Like I said, from what we expected with Maui, the wildfires that destroyed Hawaii, and the lack of response for there, the lack of response of East Palestine, Ohio, the lack of response even going back to Hurricane Katrina. Why are we surprised that this government that continues to collect your tax dollars outrageously and aggressively will not support you? Will not support you in any way or measure, even at the worst of the worst. Even for the people that say, well, you know, we can't afford healthcare, we can't afford. This is where your tax dollars should be the most important, is when you're in devastation, when your town is completely destroyed. This is where the rainy day fund is supposed to catch in, the emergency fund, the FEMA. And they're doing everything to try to distract that away from the people that need the most and give it over to their criminal buddies in the military-industrial complex to flourish a war, a proxy war that they know will never, ever, ever be accounted for or winnable whatsoever. That's just, it makes my blood boil. It honestly makes my blood boil. It's like, what's even the point? What is even the point of electing these officials? What is even the point of giving them an ounce of respect? Anyone in the government, whether it be Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, even, you know, Republican side or Democrat side. What is exactly the point of this? To giving them respect and pledging their vote and making sure they get into office, if this is the response they give to their own constituents, if this is the response they give to their own people, you know, they have enough. Screw them. You know, they've been hit by a hurricane. Do you realize that we need money to Ukraine now? We need another $1 trillion off to Ukraine because they're still in war times. We need them to win, I think. Maybe. I don't know. And sadly, that's when Joe Biden's the most coherent. Is when he's the most evil. When he's just regular Joe, he is absolutely demented. But when he does the most evil, like flushing away your hard-earned dollars at a time of need to give it to war powers, to bring it to warlords like Zelensky for a proxy war that they have established. It's amazing that Joe Biden seems to have the words right in play. And here's also, this is from Concerned Citizen pointing this out, saying, you're about to witness just how much the American government works against the people. Billions of dollars to Ukraine. Just watch how they support American families in crisis after these floods. In Hawaii, they gave victims of the Maui fires just $700 each. They lost everything. Everything. And yet they're able to give Ukraine $100 billion. $100 billion without question, without accountability, without anyone in the Capitol. Not a single senator, not a single governor bothering to question, how can we afford that? How can we afford $100 billion to flourish another nation while there's people on the streets of America that are starving to death, that are dealing with the most outrageous natural disasters that they cannot overcome because they have lost everything. Everything. And here's a video here that I want to show too of just how devastating. So this is kind of the storm surge after the hurricane. This is in northern territories like Virginia. That after the storm surge, even these areas that are not really coastal land, but more inland communities are being affected by this. Watch this. I'm just going to turn off the music for copyright, but because of the storm surge of this hurricane, you can see right there, it has now flooded dams and river streams and lakes and surrounding water systems in all these different areas. But again, according to Joe Biden, the most coherent president at that time, as opposed to all the other times, he says that there's nothing we can do. We've already gave them enough. We already gave them enough we can do. You know, just suck it up, deal with it. And again, sadly, and this doesn't bring me any joy or any pleasure to say this, but I wouldn't expect anything different. I wouldn't expect anything different even if it was Trump in office. Because this is how the oligarchy serves its people. And I use that term serves lightly because they don't really serve the people. They rule over those people. And they're not going to do anything about it. They're not going to, support the families. They're now going to be, without homes, and it's going to uptake the homeless population. And those people are going to have to seek refuge somewhere. And there's nothing's going to be done about it. Nothing's going to be done about it. But, maybe some good-hearted people at BlackRock and State Street will swarm right into those abandoned lots now and buy up the property. That's, I guess, the silver lining in free market, post-capitalism, monopoly, oligarchy system that we're in right now. At least some good-hearted individuals at the most evil, corrupted institutions like BlackRock can maybe buy up those properties and then offer those people that have lost everything, lost their homes, their valuables, their family members, hey, if you cop up another, 10 grand, maybe we can decide if you can, park a tent here. Just how devastating that is. It really just makes my blood boil. After how much damage these people have gone through. And again, makes you wonder, what is exactly the point of, these politicians that endlessly campaign demanding your support, and these people that are blindly trusting the system, once again, blindly putting their trust behind a politician just because they have a blue check mark or a red check mark next to their name, and think there's going to be any different. Because if it's not a hurricane in Florida, it'll be a wildfire in Hawaii. And if it's not that, it's a train derailment in Palestine, Ohio. If it's not that, it's Flint, Michigan with terrible water, which, by the way, is now extended to all across the United States. Because the lack of coherence, the lack of connection between the government and the people. And this is the lack of response that you get from a government that could not care less about you. And how completely corrupted the entire institution is to do this to you after everything that those people have been through.